Welcome to the Blue Watch, your backstage pass to the lives of frontline officers and the leadership steering the way. I'm Chris Casto. Together we'll navigate the challenges, hear the frontline stories, and leadership insights from those behind the badge. Today we're sitting down with Austin Police Officer Callie Wolfe. From rookie to now a field training officer, she's had almost 5 years on the job. It's been a very interesting 5 years, right?
It has been a very interesting 5 years. It has not been at all what I planned. I did not plan on being in the police department ever. And I actually went to high school here in Austin, and I swore when I left and went to Texas A&M, the best Texas university.
You're going to get some hate mail on that one.
I'm sure. That I would absolutely never come back to Austin. I swore up and down. My wife and I moved to San Antonio, and we had no plans of coming back. And then my wife says I had a quarter-life crisis, and I decided that I didn't want to do anything with my business degree that I just spent a lot of money on, and I didn't want to do anything in the business world, and I wanted to come be a police officer. And APD said yes first.
That's awesome. So what was like your life prior to this? You said it was a business degree, but did you have anything going on with that beforehand?
Yes, I was working as an office manager at an IT company. Office manager, marketing manager, a small IT company in San Antonio, and it was fun, but I was bored in an office. I couldn't stand it. And I remember I was actually driving home from work, and there was an SAPD billboard on my way up, and I was stuck in traffic on 410. I looked at it, and I was like, I could do that. I want to do that. And then I told my wife when I got home, and she's like, oh, okay, sure. And 3 days later, I had 3 applications out to SAPD, APD, and San Marcos PD.
Nice. So was it, and it was just seeing the billboard was like, oh, hey, I could do this?
There was a lot of thought process in the next 12 hours after seeing the billboard of me doing a whole bunch of research and doing a crash course on how to be a police officer. I actually stumbled across APD's, I think it was the 129th, the YouTube video that followed the whole class. I watched that on repeat at work. And I was like, yeah, I could do this.
Oh, cool. So fast forward, you get through the academy, you're out on the street, you're a rookie officer, 2020 hits.
Yeah.
And the reason why I asked this is because I remember being on the front steps with you, and brand new officer on my shift, brand new to the department, and basically everything's going crazy. How was that experience for you?
It was definitely very eye-opening. I was not what I expected. You were very encouraging during the riots and the protests of trying to talk to people, and that was very interesting for me, especially because the majority of the people I talked to, they were mad, but when you started asking them questions and they started asking you questions, they couldn't really articulate what they were mad about. They were mad at this this national event, what happened with George Floyd. They were upset with this, but when they realized that we as officers were also upset with what we saw, that kind of leveled the playing field. And I actually had more genuine conversations with people at the protests.
I want to tell you something that it's, for me, one of my happiest moments in policing, and you were actually part of it. So I wanted to kind of bring it up and see what your thoughts were on this. Is that 2020 riots are happening, we're sitting there and everybody's wearing helmets, walking out and standing there in front of protecting the main police department, right? I walked in and I talked to you guys and I said, hey, I'm going to go out there, just talk to some folks, I'm going to have my helmet off, come with me or don't, it's up to you. And I walked out, I turned around, and everybody, not even a joke, every single person from my shift was out there with me. And I was the sergeant. I wasn't asking everybody to come out. It was just if you want to. And you and everybody else was out there. And I started getting choked up at just the fact that y'all came out along with me.
Yeah, I remember. So I won't lie. I didn't want to. It's not that I felt pressured or ordered or anything like that. It was one of those things you should, but it's something you're kind of procrastinating and you don't want to. I didn't want to go get yelled at. Like, man, I was comfy in the main. I had my snacks, and I really, we had already had our turn on the line, and we were rotating out, and I just didn't want to get yelled at again. But I ended up having really good conversations with people, like actual conversations, and they were asking a lot of good questions, and I realized how much we as a profession don't do a good job explaining why we do things the way we do. And people don't know, and that's not their fault when we don't teach them why we do things the way we do. And when you have those conversations with them about why we approach traffic stops the way we do, why we put certain people in handcuffs, like what situationally is dependent on so many factors and what we're thinking about, and then we start explaining our different policies, and most people's eyes glaze over when we talk about an 800-page policy on top of Texas Penal Code, and like when you start going through that. But when they realize you actually have a reason for doing it, you're not just being, this bully authoritative person being like, you must comply. I mean, it does open up some actual good conversation. And they had some good points about things that they would like to see as changes, and that's relevant. And like I said, we have to continually growing and being better as a profession and as a department. But we're not going to get there without having that communication.
Absolutely. And one of the things you said is that, they don't know. There's no possibility that they would have an understanding of why we do certain things. That was an interesting start to the career, right?
Very interesting. I never expected a firework to go off my face. That was eye-opening. I had a lot of stuff thrown at me. Thankfully, nothing hit me. But I also, when I talk to the younger officers now that I'm in FTO and training, they didn't have that experience, and there was so much like camaraderie among officers at that time, because we were all at the main. You had people you hadn't seen in a year, your classmates, people you'd met, worked with once or twice, and they were all in one place, and you saw them regularly, and you were working with them for over 10 hours every day for almost 26 days. I think I at one time counted, and I think we worked 26 days straight, our shift.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was somewhere close to that.
Yeah.
So how was that, like, that camaraderie that you had? Do you feel like that's something that is different than what some of the officers have today, that when they're coming out of the academy and not having that?
Sometimes. I think it really depends situationally. I actually read a great book called Tribe, and I forget the author of it right now, but he talks about how humans do the best bonding in these like horrible moments, and that people, when they look back on these moments, they remember those good times. They remember the struggle, but like that's where they became closer and their relationships really developed. I made a lot of good relationships and like built so many really strong friendships in the riots of 2020 with other officers, which I don't know if I would have if that had not happened.
Do you think that influenced you when you became an FTO, or encouraged you to become an FTO?
Yes, definitely. Honestly, I think my very first FTO influenced me to become an FTO. Alan Morrison was, I think, one of the hands down best FTOs I ever had. He was the very first FTO I had. And I don't know, from day one, he always treated me with respect. Like, day one, he learned my first name. He never called me rookie. He's never all like the PPO. He always called me Callie. And then he always talked to me like a person, even when he disagreed. I remember my very first DWI with him, he disagreed with my decision. And everything went through. The individual ended up PBTing, and she was exactly .008. And he looked at me and he's like, I was wrong, good job. And like, oh, the relief I felt afterwards, because I was like, this is, hearing your FTO disagrees with your decision, but he was so respectful throughout the whole process, and like, let the process continue all the way through, like, let me do my job and then learn. And in the end, he admitted that I was right. That was huge.
Having somebody that admits their faults, and if they are wrong, it's okay, and I think that's one of the points of leadership is that even you as a field training officer at that stage, you have to be able to say, you know what, I messed up here. It's okay.
Oh, absolutely. We talk about accountability in the academy from day one, integrity. You always have to take responsibility for your actions, and we're people. We make mistakes all the time. Nothing we can do is perfect, especially in this profession, because everything is so situationally dependent. And then you're talking about it, whatever event being situationally dependent on top of multiple different people with multiple different experiences. Like you can't put it in a program. Earlier today we were talking about like simulations, and those are really great for training. But it's so different in real life when you have all the sounds, different people who aren't playing to a script. And then you have all of your baggage, and then you have your backup officers, all their experiences. I mean, you can't consolidate that. And sometimes we do make mistakes.
And talking about like people of different experiences and different backgrounds, you're now doing the field training officer. So like you're training some people that have widely varying backgrounds and experiences than you have. And I look at it like, man, officers that come in today are completely different than when I went through. So yeah. I can imagine that you're kind of seeing some of those same things too.
It's been really weird. So I have ended up training people who are actually significantly older than me, who they're coming in and this is their second profession. And then of course I've trained people who are younger than me. They're fresh out of college. This is their first real job. And it's been very informative for me. I tell them at the very beginning, I was like, when you get in my car, like I want you to ask questions, because I know everyone says like we're learning this together, but we actually are learning. I was like, my goal is to shove as much of my experience down your throat in this month that I have with you, so you can take what you like from it and use that going forward. And if you don't like it, you don't like my style, it doesn't fit for you, cool, you learned that, don't do those things and keep going. So it's been different.
I like that. You have to shove down all your knowledge down their throat. That's a good way of putting it.
I want them to start at a better place than I started. And I am here to be a stepping stone for them. So as much information as I can cram down their throat, I'm like, let's go.
Talking about, wanting the next generation, wanting the next officer to start off from a better place than where you started off. If you could go back that almost 5 years ago, and tell yourself something, because like you said, you saw this job and you're like, oh, I saw it on a billboard and I researched it for a couple hours and I put in for it. If you go back 5 years and tell yourself something about, what to expect, what would you be telling yourself, or something to help yourself?
I would definitely tell myself that like you need 8 hours of sleep. You can't function this job. Like that's sleep and water. You got to take care of yourself first. But I would also say like keep going. Like you never ever stop learning, and you're gonna have some really bad days in this job. One thing I do is I take a lot of photos of myself having fun, and I have that on my phone. And anytime I have a bad day, I have 200 pictures of me having a good day. And that has really, really helped me, because there have been some days that were really bad.
Yeah. And you're going to have hard days through this job. Absolutely. You're going to have hard days. What have you seen throughout your career would help younger officers throughout some of those hard times? Because this is a very challenging time in policing. It absolutely is. It's unique.
Yeah. It really, really is. I think there's this prevalent belief that we can do this, like, to be a strong person, you have to do this by yourself. I don't think that's true. I think there's a lot of strength in opening yourself up and being transparent about what you're struggling with. I have been at this department almost 5 years, and I have never had to hide anything personal about myself, about anything that I'm struggling with. I've been very open, and my my command staff and my shift mates and really everyone has been very helpful and accommodating and supporting. You know, you're not going to get along with everybody, and there's plenty of people out there who probably don't want to see you succeed, and you know that it's not a perfect world. But I have never not felt supported at this department, and I think honestly, I don't mind asking questions for people. I don't mind explaining people my situation. I'm not trying to live in a box and like nobody can be let into my castle, because that's not how you build connections, and that's not how you build relationships. And at the end of the day, the best part of this job is the relationships that you build here.
No, I couldn't agree more. You definitely, the relationships that you have with your fellow officers, the relationship you have with the people that are right next to you, but also the relationships you have with people in the community. What are some ways that you've seen officers communicating or working within the community that have worked out well, or things that you would like to see more of with officers working with the community?
I've seen a lot of people do different things. I think if you're going to work with the community and do these community engagement type things, they have to come from a place of authenticity. Like I know a lot of people, they want to be TikTok cops. That's the new thing. The generation loves that. It's not my thing, but if it comes from a place of authenticity, I think it does make a difference. Like one thing, I really like animals. You know this. Any sort of animal call, I am on it. And because of that, I've built some really great connections with actually Amanda Quick and Carlton the pig. Carlton is probably one of my favorite stories on patrol, and it happened. I think it was on phase 2, so the second month of being an active duty police officer. And I still talk to Amanda today, and I love Carl. Every time I see him in Mueller, I stop by, and he doesn't always let me give him a scratch. He, sometimes he's having his days, but I think whatever you like doing, if you want to, incorporate a way to do that with the community, like that's what builds engagement.
Well put. I like that. You find the thing that you love, and then you incorporate it into your job.
Yeah.
Your life's goal maybe not just be a cop, but just doing whatever you love within it. Tell me the story about Carlton, because not everyone will know what you're talking about when you're talking about Carlton.
Okay. So this call comes out that there is a screaming piglet. And I remember my FTO at the time was like, absolutely not. That's a fire call. We're not going there. That's weird. And we were driving by that house. I had to take one right. And I was like, nope, assigned. We're already here, 23. I'm all about this. And I screech up, park in front of the house, and Amanda comes running out, and she's just got this worried expression on her face. And you can hear Carlton screaming from the street. Pigs don't like to be held against their will. And their one defense mechanism is an extremely, piercing scream. And so, people thought she was, killing somebody in her house. So I go in, and poor Carl was looking for some treats, and he got his head caught behind a pedestal sink. And he had his cute little chubby baby cheeks. And so they just kind of got wedged behind the sink. And I wish I still have the body camera, because he was covered in olive oil, and I had him shoved up against the wall of the bathroom. And I asked Amanda for a kitchen fork. And the look on her face when I asked for a kitchen fork while holding her screaming piglet was priceless.
I can imagine. You're like, hey, pass me the fork. We're going to have some bacon or something.
Yes, but to her credit, she didn't ask me any questions. She ran to the kitchen, she got me a fork, and when you scratch a pig with a fork, it's kind of like, when you pull a cat by the scruff, it just immediately makes them relax. And once I scratched his back a little bit, he relaxed. His head popped out by himself, and then we fed him some blueberries, and that was it. And fire pulled up right after that, after APD saved the day. So, just throwing that out there.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they tried to take a picture with Carlton. I told my FTO, I was like, no, we're going to be in this picture too, because we did the work.
Yeah. But you maintain that relationship to today. You've actually kept up with Carlton, with Amanda, with the entire.
Carlton's a little bigger. He's about 100 pounds bigger now. I can't pick him up as much. But yeah, no, I have, and I really, it's always, I love hearing from Amanda how Carl's doing and what they're up to. It's been really cool. There's a lot of little things that happen on patrol that people go out of their way for, that we don't see, that's never reported, that, you have these small moments of kindness from officers, and, it matters to the person, but nobody else sees it. And I don't think we do a good enough job of, like, highlighting that amongst ourselves. I mean, I have a couple of ideas myself, but they're not necessarily on the more professional, like, department side. Like, I really think there should be, like, an officer ingenuity award or something like that, for kind of these, like, clever ideas that come out of patrol, where we don't have a lot of equipment, we don't have the, like, best answer to solve something, so we have to, like, jury rig something to get it to work. I think officers on the fly come up with a lot of creative things.
So, in talking about recognition and recognizing officers for the things that they do well, what would you say to people who are becoming leaders in supervisory positions? What would you say to them that you would like to see as an officer on patrol?
I think being willing to be coached kind of from the bottom up is a very underrated skill. Like, we don't know everything. And when you're, freshly promoted to any position, like, there may be someone with significantly more experience who is now, your subordinate. They still have a lot you can learn from, and you can benefit from those experiences. Everyone should do this respectfully, but, I think learning up is just as important as, like, learning down the chain.
In talking about, leading up, is there any times that you can think of in your career that you've talked to, like, a supervisor or led from the bottom to kind of help change things around?
I've been so lucky with my supervisors. They have all been willing to make sure I have everything I need to, pursue what I'm interested in, whether it be ride-outs or additional training. But they've also been very supportive in, like, letting me pass that knowledge along. One individual, like, I'm sure you're familiar with Jeff Sumner. He, anytime I went to a training, he was like, okay, after you go to training, you got to do a presentation. You got to present everything you learned to the ship so we can all benefit from what you know. And it was like, you never ended up having this silo of information, because it got disseminated amongst all of you. And he was always right there in the front row. But, I have been so lucky with my supervisors. I have never had one that isn't willing to isn't willing to learn something from me.
How has it been for you as a rookie officer? You're brand new, and you're being asked, hey, tell me something that I don't know. It's like, how does that feel like when somebody tells you that?
I mean, it's almost like a dare. It's like, let me rack through my brain and find something you don't know. But I mean, I think having just that question being asked creates this like openness, so you can have these dialogues of where information from this wide range of experiences on your patrol level can get pushed up, as well as all those experiences from up top can be pushed down, because people are willing to have those conversations with each other. There's not, hierarchy is important, but when it comes to learning, like, that flow of information is so much more open.
And in talking about, like, leading them and teaching them, how have you adopted your leadership style to fit the needs of different generations that have come through? You said you've taught people older than you and also even people younger than you. So what have you done to kind of change your style to help teach them?
A lot of patience. I feel like I have to ask more questions in order to get people to ask me questions, because everyone's learning style is different, and I'm not an expert. I don't know how a person best learns and what information is going to make the most impact. I don't know if they're learn better by doing or, by watching something being done. So I end up asking a lot of questions. My rookies make fun of me all the time because they're like, you talk a lot. And I am exhausted at the end of a day of training. I have to, like I said, go back to drinking water because I talk almost all 10 hours. Whether it's asking them questions so I understand like what they're thinking and where they're coming from, or trying to make sure that when they ask me a question, I am giving them as much information as I have. Like I'm not like, here's the bullet point. I'm like, here's everything possible. You can pick what you like from it.
Have you come across any like challenges, in just thinking of the different generational gaps? Because you have people who are now coming out that are at 21 years old. You can be an officer. These are people born after the year 2000, post 9/11.
Yes.
So have you come across any challenges in working with the different generations?
I have to use Urban Dictionary a lot because some of these new terminologies I'm not up to date. I don't know what they mean. That being said, it is a good education moment for everybody because they get to teach me something about what this word means and why we use it in that term or in that context. It's been very, very eye-opening. It definitely works on my patience, but it's a good thing because there's more than one ways to do things. There's more than one way to skin a cat. There's plenty of ways that it's not my way that an officer in training does, and they accomplish the same goal, and kind of having the patience to step back and let them do it their way because that's what works best for them. Like I'm not training them to be a little me. I'm training them to be a good Austin police officer. And they have to do that in their authentic way, not mine.
Oh, that's a great way of putting it. And you're not trying to make a clone or, as the old thing was, is that we're all stormtroopers and this is the exact mold. You're trying to make them their own authentic self. I love that. That's a great way of putting it.
Yeah, we need all of our differences. Those are very important.
When it comes to mental health for officers, because, let's be realistic, this is like, we're on par with suicide rates when it comes to the military. We have high rates of divorce, high rates of alcoholism. What is it that our leaders can do to help promote a better climate for them? Or things that you've seen that has helped?
Sometimes it doesn't take a supervisor. Sometimes it takes a friend. If you just have a conversation with somebody, not as a supervisor, not as, a shift mate, but just as a person. And then we, as officers, have a really hard time with not wanting to fix things. You can tell us your problem. And we're like, okay, cool. Well, you can do this, and you can do this, and here's your plan of action. And sometimes the best thing we can do is just shut up. Just shut up and listen. But I think that's probably what, like, we all need to be doing for each other. Sometimes we all just need to shut up and listen.
just shut up.
Sometimes like I said, I talk a lot, so sometimes I just need to stop.
No, it's a good point. I think that listening is one of those things that a lot of people don't do as well. Mm-hmm. It's the cell phone generations. We are always online and we, always communicating, but not really listening. We're doing things for the likes, but not really hearing that feedback.
Yeah. Sometimes if you your friend's having a bad day and you just sit in silence with their bad day, and sometimes that's all they need is just being in the same space as another person who gets it and isn't trying to fix it.
Whenever you have those situations, like somebody's just having a bad day, mm-hmm. and you recognize, you take a look at somebody and say, hey, this is not your norm, mm-hmm. What are some things that you might do? Because I know as us as cops, like, we don't want to talk about our feelings, right?
No, nobody wants to talk about their feelings. That's very mushy, and it has feeling to it. We don't like that. It depends, because again, this is, it's a male-dominated profession. The majority of the people I've experienced who are having a bad day, they're dudes, and they don't want to talk about their feelings with their female shift mate. which I get. Sometimes we have vent sessions, and that's fine. I'm here. It's hard, but I'm here to listen and not offer solutions to problems. But sometimes I'm just their running buddy for the day, and we go do the calls that they want to do, and just letting them have their space in a way that they know they're also supported. So.
Giving them that time to kind of decompress on their own.
Yeah, and it goes back to kind of like respecting our differences. Like, just because I'm a female officer doesn't mean that they're going to want to talk to me and talk about their problems. And, they're my friends, but not trying to dig at them because, hey, I'm a girl. I want to talk about it. Like, let's talk about it. Let's discuss. I mean, we're different. We all handle things and the baggage that comes with this job differently. And again, they don't have to do it my way. Sometimes we need the space, but knowing that we have a friend who's there if we need them, and sometimes you need the friend who's there listening to you. Sometimes you do want to talk about it and like let's discuss and like problem solve. It depends on the individual, but they're gonna dictate that.
Let me ask you this, and I want to talk a little bit specifically about leadership. And tell me what it means for you to be a good leader in policing today.
Yeah, that's difficult because it's not one thing. I guess it goes back to that like authenticity, because I have had so many good leaders and they've all been different. Like personality wise, they're different. Leadership styles, they're different. Just everything about them is absolutely different, and they've all been very good leaders, and I've learned a lot from them. And I try to take the things that work for me and leave behind the things that don't, because that doesn't fit who I am. I've had some leaders that are very blunt, very direct, and this is black and white. That's not me. I'm a little fluffier, but I don't think there's one thing, as long as you're being authentic to who you are as a leadership, and that as a leadership style, and then you aren't trying to be something you're not, but you're willing to allow people to be different. I think we get stuck in this mentality as officers that everyone has to be the same. And, yes, our uniforms need to be the same, and we need to be, squared away and looking good, absolutely. But our differences help us make an impact with our community, because where one person can't connect with somebody, another person might. We all bring these strengths, and we can play up with those. You always have to kind of play to your strengths. You can't, especially in this job.
Thank you so much, Callie, for being here, and thank you for joining us today on the Blue Watch. Please share, like, and subscribe for more leadership insights from the front line, and check out our website, thebluewatch.com. Until next time, stay safe, everyone.